Hello, everybody. Welcome to this webinar on completing your habitat map with the National Education Nature Park. It's going to run until past, and this webinar is going to be recorded and put on the YouTube channel afterwards as well. So don't worry, if you miss anything, you'll be able to watch it back later on. We'll have some time for questions during the webinar when we'll have some hands-on time. So please do use the chat, ask your questions, and they'll be answered both during and at the very end of the webinar as well. And just to introduce myself, Juliana, I work on the project as part of the community science team based at the Natural History Museum. What we're going to walk you through today are just a bit about the why and the value of creating research grade maps, going through some tips and tricks to draw these really accurate habitat maps, have some hands-on dedicated time, and time to answer some common questions. So who this webinar is for, I'm aiming it for educators who've already registered on the website and have been outside on their site with young people, identifying the habitats that they have on their site. Ideally, you also have started on your habitat map, but don't worry if you haven't. We'll walk through some tips and tricks that will still be relevant and useful, and you'll have some time to practice later on as well. So if you can, there'll be a link in the chat to the homepage. So click on the link and make sure you log in with your details. And then there'll be a second link to the Habitat Mapper tool that then you can open up. And just remember, if you haven't been on in a little while, there'll probably be a big blue button as you're logging in as you open the Habitat Mapper. Just click the big blue button and that will take you straight through to the Habitat Mapper tool. While you're logging in and getting the Habitat Mapper tool up, I'll just briefly recap that the habitat mapping is a method to map and record all the habitats present on your site. So it's all your outdoor space except for the buildings. And it's really about turning your students into scientists, and the essential first step to prep your lab, your outdoor space, collect that baseline data upon which you can then build year on year. And you're joining a huge cohort of people. We have over 1,900 settings that have already made a start on their habitat maps. Very briefly to mention the Nature Park map. So this is where your habitat mapping data, your biodiversity data, other environmental and nature connection data sets all end up. This is the one-stop shop map where lots of different types of data get layered together. And this is where you can go in, you can explore, you can change and turn layers on and off and find exactly what you want to see about your site. So why make your map research grade? This is about laying really strong foundations for the future. So having a really strong baseline map means that all the data collected by young people in the future will be able to be layered on and be identifiable to the correct kind of habitat and situation that you have on your site. You're getting really rich insights about your site, and by doing it at the start, you can then demonstrate how you're boosting biodiversity as you're making habitat enhancements on your site. And really briefly, it's about making it accurate now makes your life then much easier later on. There'll be a lot less editing involved later on because everything will be automatically linked and layered on to that really strong baseline foundation. And also, just to say, for anyone interested, all the maps that are more than 80% complete and of good quality get included in the scientific publications from the Nature Park research. So if you're interested, this is a really great chance to be included in real scientific research. Let's dive into some tips and tricks. You already know this, I'm sure, but we have 8 habitat categories, and for each of these, there are flowcharts. So this is what you would be using outdoors to identify the habitats that are on your site, and then you come back indoors and these are uploaded on the website. It can be done outdoors, the whole thing, with a tablet, but the element of going out and identifying the habitats is crucial that you're using the flowcharts to do so. And if you've been on the Habitat Mapper tool and you've mapped some shapes, you'll have seen that there's 3 kinds of features. There are areas, lines, and points. And it's really important to pick the right one, because if you say you'd been outside, you were looking at some trees, well, was it an area of trees? Was it a line of trees? Or was it a single tree, for example? So it's really important to pick the right kind of feature depending on what it is that you're seeing outside, and the flowchart will guide you to the right feature to pick. Think of it like icing a cake. Ideally, you would start with your big areas, so sort of your playgrounds, any playing fields, your big sort of areas that you would layer on your cake. Then you would do the lines and the glazes and the ribbons, so like a line of trees, for example, and finally the points, so sort of the dots and the spots that you would be layering on your cake at the very end. So areas, then lines, then points. Biggest to smallest. And with these, you can see how understandable it would be to sort of pick, for example, you've got an area of trees or a playground, to pick the line feature and to draw a line around it, and that's you've marked out your line, your area of trees. What the biodiversity modeling that we do in the nature park misunderstands it as, though, is that it would just calculate the biodiversity within that line, or just a couple of meters either side of it. It wouldn't work out that within that line, it's a whole amazing area for biodiversity. So just be aware of the lines versus areas. And if you have an area of woodland or a playground, that you're selecting the area. And this will make sense, because when you're able to estimate, and you want to estimate the biodiversity on your site, picking the right sort of feature will give you the most accurate estimate when we have that. And here's another example. So we've got kind of trees in a line here, which would be in an area probably of woodland. And then here we've got kind of playgrounds with the lines around them. So very simply, just pick the area, and you would know whether it's an area or a line, even at quite a distance, because you sort of see that when it's a line, the kind of text follows the line. Whereas if it's an area like that orchard in the corner here, it's sort of the name of that habitat is right slap bit bang in the middle of the picture. So have a look at your maps, see if you can spot any potential lines and areas. One of the other things is overlapping shapes. So this is when we've got things like grasses and wildflowers in this case, or like a playing field. And then on top of that, the area of trees. And the biodiversity modeling won't know quite which one to pick, whether it was an area of trees or an area of lawn, for example. And this will be particularly relevant if on your site you have any like raised beds on a playing ground. So you would have sort of understandably your raised beds are on the playground, right? But for the biodiversity modeling, it would need to know whether that area either was a raised bed or a playground, for example. And there's a great solution to this one, is to break big areas into small chunks. So like I've kind of done here, sort of a bit like a puzzle piece, kind of working out, okay, well, this bit here goes around this bit, and leaving out those middle bits where, you know, then you can map, having gone outside and used the flowcharts, then you can map things like a raised bed or a food growing area, or whatever it is that you have and have identified on your site. The snapping tool is a good tip. This is a really fun one to use. So when you've got kind of two shapes that you want to be, that are next to each other, and you want them to sort of get them really close and leave no gaps between them, this is a really nice way of saving you tons of time. Instead of going in and sort of really getting really close together, you turn the snapping tool on, that I'll show you how to do in a demo in just a moment. And it means that it sort of, you get this orange line and then these orange dots, which means those two shapes, this new shape that you're drawing, will snap to the one you've already drawn. And then you get really neat maps. I love the snapping tool. And I'll show you how to turn it on, but it's from the edit and under the settings, snapping layers, and then you just tick that box on. And to edit and delete shapes, I'll show you in just a moment with the demo. Just be aware, if you're exploring and having a look at your map and clicking on shapes, it will ask you, if you haven't already filled in both habitat types, it will ask you to fill them in. So both the habitat group, which is kind of the umbrella, such as trees, and the habitat itself, which in this case is a broadleaf woodland. So just be aware that it will ask you both, and to get to the answer, the flowcharts are the way to go. We're going to be doing some hands-on time. So please open up the Habitat Mapper tool and find your map. I'm just very quickly going to show you that from the habitat mapping page that has been linked in the chat, launch activity for anyone to open that up from here. And then you would just kind of search for your site or your local town, or zoom in. And I'm just zooming into the Natural History Museum just because it's where I'm based. And I've already got some shapes on my site. And I just want to show you the snapping tool, because that's a really fun one. So you've gone to your site, this is what it looks like. You want to add a new shape and you want to snap it to the shapes you might already have, for example, or you're editing a shape and you want to snap it. Go to Edit, and then under Settings, there is the Snapping Layers. There's a drop down, and then you tick the box, Habitat Mapper Survey, and that's now turned on. So at this point, I'm going to just hide the settings again. If I now want to add a new shape, note that there's the points, the lines, and the areas. So then you just pick the new shape that you want to be drawing. And then you see how it goes orange. Glows orange, and then if you go to the corner, it kind of, the dot glows orange. At that point, you can click and then move, click and then move, click and then move, and then say, I want it like that. There we are. It will ask me for the habitat group. So just bear in mind, tweak what you've got rather than adding new shapes just now. But I just wanted to show you how to use the tool just now, and it signed me out. So give me a minute to sign back in. Okay. Let's have a look at editing and deleting shapes. So again, from the edit, you'll see some symbols at the very top with the cursor, specifically that middle one there, that's a select by point cursor. That allows you to select a shape. It can be a line, it can be a point. And what happens at this point is you get this orange box around your shape. So there's a big box, and then if you click once more, you get little dots all around the shape. And then if you click again, big box, little dots, big box, little dots. And so the little dots allow you to kind of really tweak it in detail, whereas the big box, you kind of move the entire shape. When you're ready, you just click update. And say you want to delete a shape, make sure you're on the select by point again. You click on the shape and you either move it, as in the case of here, or you just click delete to delete it. Okay. So we are going to have some hands-on time now. So please have a look at your map. And if you already have a habitat map, have a look, have a check, have a play around. If you don't already have a habitat map, just use this time to practice and just make sure you delete any practice shapes that you're adding. I'm going to be keeping this page up for the next few minutes. We're going to have about 10 minutes to do this hands-on time. So I'll go a bit quiet in just a moment to allow you time to have a go. But please do have a look and ask us questions. So use the chat to ask us questions. I'll come back in a few minutes. I'll have a look at the chat and then see if there's anything to demo or anything to answer from then. But in the meantime, I'll give you a few minutes to just have a go. See if you can find any overlapping shapes or any lines instead of areas, or have a go at turning on or off the snapping tool. I've got to say, when I was putting together this presentation and I was looking for examples of these different types of maps, I was having a really hard time because most maps I was looking at were really amazingly and incredibly detailed and accurate. So if you're sitting here and thinking, oh, that bit, I could just tweak that one, please have a go and please do tweak it. But just really, I want to reassure you about the amazing detail and accuracy of so many of the habitat maps that we have in the Nature Park project. It's absolutely incredible to see. And on that note, I have some postcodes on this same PowerPoint, on this same page, where you can sort of copy and paste the postcodes of some of these amazing maps and just see for yourself how incredible and how detailed they are. I'm going to put a timer on for the next few minutes, so please do have a go and ask questions. There'll be Laura and Tom in the chat able to answer questions and then shout if there's any that you'd like me to answer live.
Hey, Juliana, we've had one question in from Crofton Infants. So their question is about how do they add plants and animals in that habitat? Is it through iNaturalist? So I guess a stage on from habitat mapping. Could you explain a little bit about the different stages and when that data gets added to the nature park map?
Great question. Yes. So this is all about baselining what's already there and kind of starting from the big picture, starting from the habitats. For any like individual species or any individual kind of biodiversity that you want to be recording, there are biodiversity surveys to do that. So opening up next week is the pollinator count, for example, where you can go and count pollinators on flowers across your site. And by inputting the data through the website, then that will automatically appear on the map. So having mapped your baseline, having mapped those areas where you're doing the pollinator count, for example, those, they're little butterfly icons actually, they will then get layered on top of that habitat. So you can start comparing and seeing how the pollinators fare across your site. And there's also a grassland plant survey that's going to be launching very soon as well to do the same thing. And the other thing is iNaturalist. So you might already be using iNaturalist across your site, but if you sign up with a username that has NENP underscore, and then the name of your school, for example, that gets drawn in to the nature park data. So any records, so iNaturalist is a really simple tool to take pictures of wildlife across your site, and it uses image recognition to suggest what sort of species or what kind of animal or plant or fungi it might be. And then once you have those pictures, those become biological records. So they contribute to global research, actually. And by having an accurate location, for example, and having a clear picture, that will then get, and the NENP username, that data gets pulled automatically into the nature park map. So you get to see your baseline habitats, for example, your pollinator count data, potentially your grassland survey data, and your iNaturalist data as well, all in one place, and be able to compare, turn them on and off, see what different gaps each of those surveys are filling, and get a really good picture of the biodiversity that you have on your site right now. I hope that answers the question, but do shout if you'd like me to explain a bit further. Or do tell us if you've had a go with iNaturalist and how you've been finding it. We'll give it a couple more minutes. It's so exciting that you're using or potentially are going to use iNaturalist or these other biodiversity surveys. It's really cool. You get the idea that by having both that kind of direct biodiversity data and this indirect habitat data, from a simple habitat map, we'll be able to estimate the biodiversity on that site. So that indirect habitat data and the direct biodiversity data together give us a really robust understanding of how biodiversity is using your site and thriving in it.
Thanks, Juliana. We've just got a follow-up question about where that data could be seen. So asking, will it be seen on the Habitat Mapper tool, or where will all of that data collectively be seen for schools that have mapped their habitat and then collected data of what's living and growing on their site?
Of course, yes. Let me go back on here. Here we go. So the Nature Park map. So you can access this from the main homepage of the website. You just scroll down a touch, and then you just click on the big map, and this is where you can go on, and you'll see this kind of add layer button. That's where you can then add things. It'll automatically have your baseline habitats, so what we've been talking about just now. Those will already be on there. But if you then collect iNaturalist data, biodiversity data, from the add layer button, you select iNaturalist, pollinator count, grassland survey, and those dots will automatically appear if you've collected the data on your site. They will just automatically appear right on there. Hence why having the accurate map now makes life so much easier, because the points will just automatically appear exactly where you've done the surveys, exactly where those baseline habitats already are. Okay, I hope you've had a good chance to explore and have a go and be proud of the map that you've created, and have a look around your local area, check out what some of the other schools are doing, and hopefully you'll feel more confident using the tool and creating amazing research grade maps. Just to carry on, I wanted to very briefly touch upon all the different habitat mapping digital tools. So the Nature Park map is what we've just talked about. It's kind of where you visualize the one-stop shop of seeing all the data in one place. The site boundary, you will have drawn your green site boundary around your site. Baseline habitats, this habitat mapper is what we've talked about just now. And the one we haven't mentioned is tracking changes. So tracking changes is separate to the habitat mapper tool. And while the habitat mapper is for the baseline, what's there right now kind of habitats, tracking changes is for any enhancements, for example, that you're making. So anything you've been adding or anything that's been removed, such as a path that might be removed, or a car park that might be added, or a pond or a food growing area. The key word with tracking changes is the change bit. So if anything has changed from the baseline that you've collected now, that's the tool that you would go and add it in. And the reason we have two separate ones is that it makes the data really comparable. So this is where we would then be able to track, as it says, track the changes that you're making and your young people are making on your site, and be able to compare and see the difference that you're making. Where to find help. So we have a brilliant interactive how-to guide on using these tools with really short, snappy videos. There'll be a link in the chat in just a moment. And we have a fantastic set of people spread right across the country in local to you. These are our regional teams, and their emails are there. And there's the Find Local Help page on the website where you can find all their email addresses. We also have a national mailbox with a hello@ email address. So any of these are fantastic places to get in touch if you'd like a bit more help. And just to leave you with a bit of an inspirational slide to say that there's a blog on, if you'd like to learn more about how these maps contribute to the bigger picture and how they're contributing to global biodiversity research into nature recovery. And read some of the amazing success stories of other schools, how they've been doing habitat mapping, how they've been implementing Nature Park on their site. And we're always on the lookout for success stories. So please do get in touch if you'd like to feature on the website. Please do jot us a line at the hello@ email address right there. I am going to say a big thank you. And I'm here to answer any further questions. And just to say that this webinar, as I said at the beginning, will be recorded. It will be on the YouTube channel to watch back. So don't worry if you didn't take notes or you'd like to take a bit more of a time to have a go at tweaking your map. And also, I believe there will be we are attempting a poll on the chat. So please look out for that. And just answer that before you jump off. So do stick around if you'd like to ask a question or go into a bit more detail as to the surveys or the mapping. It's our community science team at the museum that run the biodiversity surveys and the mapping. So please do shout and ask us questions. This is a great chance to have a bit more of a dialogue. So. Thank you for the amazing questions about the biodiversity surveys, though. It's a really good one about how it all comes together in the big picture. So do watch out do keep an eye on the future webinars as well. They're all will be listed on the website, and then we have a lot more coming up in the next few months. It's spring is coming, so this is a really great time to get outside, map habitats, record biodiversity. So I really hope you'll join us in making it a fantastic spring. Thank you all for coming along, and hopefully see you at one of the next webinars. Thanks all very much.